All righty. What's good, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Vince here. Fortunately, we're not going to have Russ for today's video, but that's okay. Stay tuned for what we have to share here, man. As you guys can see on the title, today's episode is going to be focused a lot on the Lakers ownership change. What does this mean for Laker fans? What does this mean for Laker Nation? I don't know. We're going to talk and dive deep into the details. But before we do, you guys, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that like if you enjoy our content and share with your friends, of course, if they do as well. Of course, majority of the stuff that we like to talk about is Lakers centric, but however, we also are covering other teams as well, especially in the NBA finals right now. So if you haven't already checked out some of our NBA final coverages, our live streams, go ahead and check that out as well. Let's get right into this. So first and foremost, you guys, if you're not already privy to the news, and this has been news that's been going on for about 24 hours now, right? So this isn't too new, but not too old. Recently, we just got news that the Buss family just sold a majority of their shares to Mr. Mark Walter, the owner of the LA Dodgers. It went for a record breaking $10 billion valuation, which is a historic feat in its own as far as any sports team going for this amount. The second highest, I believe, was the Boston Celtics, and the third highest being the Golden State Warriors. So let's take a look at the reports from, of course, ESPN's Shams Charania, who, of course, is the insider in this case that broke the news. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper in terms of what this may mean, again, for Laker fans and what we can hopefully expect for the future. Now, as we look into the article here, it says the Buss family is entering into an agreement to sell majority ownership of the Los Angeles Lakers to Mark Walter for a franchise valuation of approximately $10 billion, sources told by ESPN. In addition, Jeanie Buss will remain the Lakers governor and continue to run the team for at least a number of years. Pay attention to that. And it was guaranteed as part of agreement that Buss would remain in charge for the foreseeable future, and Walter fully endorsed this plan, according to sources. Okay, now as we can see here, um, basically what we're being told is the Buss family is selling, but they're not selling with the idea of them just disappearing, right? It'd be kind of odd to see the Buss family completely gone from Laker Nation, given that Dr. Buss, Jeannie's father, rest in peace, he was the one that really made the initial push for Laker Nation back in the 60s. And since then, he created Showtime. He created obviously the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. We've been able, even myself, as young and old as I am, I've been able and blessed to see a lot of championships in my days being a Laker fan, and a lot of that was pioneered and governed by Dr. Buss. Obviously, once he passed away, Jeannie and her brother, he who shall not be named, is basically they inherited the company. If you guys recall the dark days of being a Laker fan, I'm sure we all remember. Um, Back when Jeannie wasn't as involved and the brother was involved, those were the days of just put a bag over my head, right? We were in the lottery multiple times. I think we were like top two, top three picks in like of the last 4 years during this time span. What they did to Kobe was just unforgivable. Like the roster that they had left Kobe with in his later age was just an embarrassment, in my humble opinion. It just was not done right. And then here comes Jeannie. Once Jeannie comes, she also, allows Magic Johnson to be a voice, right? A consultant in some ways. He recruits LeBron James. Next thing you know, they recruit Anthony Davis. And then in COVID year 2020, the Lakers bring home a championship, right? But since then, Lakers have not really had a whole lot to celebrate, unfortunately. After that championship, we've been bounced out in the first round a couple times. We've been bounced down the second round, or beg my pardon, the Western Conference Finals. One would argue we should never even made it to the Western Conference Finals that year, just because of the coaching situation. But regardless, we did, and a lot of us have been thoroughly wondering, well, what does this mean for the rest of us? What does this mean in terms of the future, right? Because we were seeing all these upcoming teams really making pushes, hiring great coaches, developing young players. The league's gotten a lot more athletic. It's got a lot more younger. We need a new voice. And the voices that we've had so far have not exactly been the best, unfortunately. So let's talk about the real question here. What does this mean for Laker fans right now? In case you guys aren't aware, I've been a Laker fan literally since I was a boy, since I was a kid, about 6, 7 years old. Um, my favorite player all time, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Mama mentality, always big in my family. And so for me, I will always die a Laker fan, right? And so um, I've also been there for the dark times. I've been there for the great times. But what I've always wondered is, what voice are we going to have that's going to fully attract these free agents, right? Because we remember the lore that came with being a Laker fan, being that a lot of people wanted to come to LA. They wanted to have that pressure of being a Laker, to bring home a championship and be a part of Laker history, right? Because all the greats come to Lakers. And so now I just feel like for the past, I want to say 5, 7 years, it has not been the same, right? It really hasn't. Maybe even last decade. Yes, we did win that championship 5 years ago, but one could argue outside of LeBron coming, who else was really talking about coming here? Even Kawhi didn't want to come to Lakers. Even Paul George, didn't really want to come to Lakers. And so there's that whole thing, right? And I just kind of was looking like, okay, what are we doing? And even right now, as we got bounced in the first round as the third seed, although we did get Luka Doncic, uh, during the trade deadline, our structure, our roster construction was just not meant to go make a deep dive or a deep, push in terms of the playoffs. But you definitely expected better than a first round bounce, let alone getting gentlemen swept. And so there's been a lot of uncertainty going on. What I will tell you this, that we have something to look forward to, Laker fans, right? That's watching this video. If you know anything about the new ownership coming up, right? And I'm going to pull it up again because, again, we're not just here talking about the money that's being dropped on this. We're also here to talk about the people that are involved. When we're talking about Mark Walter, we're also talking about a gentleman who also owns the Los Angeles Dodgers. And we just saw what the Dodgers did this past season, win the World Series. Shout out to the Dodgers in blue, right? But we also know who's involved with the Dodgers as well, outside of Mark being the owner. That would be Magic Johnson. And it's funny timing. And I have a theory here. If you guys don't watch First Take, right? I grew up watching First Take. Love it sometimes, don't love it sometimes. It just depends on the day or the topic. But he did recently go on their show and he literally had a conversation with Stephen A. Smith specifically about ownership, right? Owning a company. Everywhere that Magic goes, success follows. You see what he's been able to do with the Washington Commanders football team. You've seen what he's done in the past with the Lakers, being a consultant. You've seen what he's done with the Dodgers. And so they had this conversation. Do you see yourself in management? Maybe the Knicks, And he alluded a little bit to, it's hard because I was approached by the Warriors once upon a time and I just couldn't do it because I'm such a Laker, right? And so it's funny timing how everything's connecting, right? Stay with me here. Everything's connecting. He is a partner ownership of the Dodgers too. So do you really think that Mark's going to be paying for this exchange of the Lakers without hearing any word from Magic? Of course not. Magic literally is going to be involved one way or the other. If you're smart, even if you don't know basketball or not, you always want to go to an expert who does. And you may be an expert at making money, but you're not an expert at knowing ball. And so with him coming in as an owner, allowing somebody like Magic to come back in and be a voice is important. And we've already heard the things between Magic and Rob not really meshing all that well, especially during the exit. Kind of rubbed him the wrong way as far as how Rob was kind of handling business into his position, or at least coming up into his GM position. It's interesting to see how that dynamic's going to happen if he is involved and at what capacity Magic will be involved. But that's something to be excited about because you got a lifetime Laker now, somebody who can really have conversations with these players, sit down, talk about what it means to be a Laker, and actually have the cachet to share with it as well. Because LeBron, yes, he's a great player, but his days are numbered. I give him maybe 2, 3 years tops of being in the league at this point. And then after that, what else do you have to sell your product? Yes, we got Luca, but Luca still has to work on some of his game as well before he has that cachet to really be like, hey, come here and play with me, right? And so I think there's a lot to be excited about, you guys. I think that even though it is going to be weird, hearing about the Lakers being sold, Jeanie still being involved is another thing. When I hear that she's going to be involved, I almost feel like a lot of this is going to be primarily focused on the family unity, right? Like they've talked a lot about how they want it to be kind of like a family organized type of organization for the Lakers, where they want a lot of the staff to be in some ways like family. right? And also a lot of the players, they want them to feel home, like family. And so I think that Jeanie is kind of more there to also be a lure, kind of like Magic, just talking about what it's like to be the daughter of the late great Dr. Buss and seeing what he was able to do. Also, she did and was a part of that championship that they won in 2020. And so being able to have that as well is important. And her involvement will still be important. I mean, she is an amazing person. I don't know on a personal level, but I do know that from interviews I've seen from her, anytime that she's ever allowed herself to be out in the public eye, she seems to be a pretty decent person. And so, you have to imagine she's not doing this just for nothing. She's not also doing it maybe just for money. She's got to be doing it for a reason. And for her to still put it in that clause, that she wants to be at least in a minor role of involvement for some years to come is important, because that says that she's not just trying to sell to get rid of and get rid of the problem per se, that the Lakers have at this moment, but that she wants to still be involved with fixing the problems in order and going into a route of getting banner number 18, right? And so there's a lot, like I said, to be excited about. I'm excited personally. Y'all let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. If there's some opinions that you guys have too that I may have missed, let me know, man, because when it comes to Lakers, I could sit here and talk about it all day. And hearing about this news, it was definitely shocking to me. I wanted to take some time to really think about what I wanted to even present to you guys before I just kind of dove into it. Being that, I'm really more of a Laker fan, whereas our boy Russ, he's a LeBron fan. And so, for me, like, I think that great days are coming. I am very curious to see what Rob and the organization does as far as this offseason. Clearly, we need a big. Clearly, we need size, athleticism. Let's pay close attention to see what they do. The draft is coming up fairly soon. Let's see what they do. I know they don't have any draft picks, but you know, we're the Lakers. Sometimes we just get people at a very low price. Look at what we did with Austin Reeves. Look at what we did with Alex Caruso. I'm just saying there might be a name out there that we already have searched that we just don't know about, and they might be a difference maker. Y'all let me know again in the comment section down below what y'all think. Like, subscribe. Y'all take care, man.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast, where we bring you the hottest NBA moments, discussions, and everything in between. If you like today's show, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a Courtside Podcast again.